Hi, my name is Hannah, and today we are interviewing Dan. Dan is an international entrepreneur based in Southeast Asia. We interviewed him last May. We decided to have a follow up interview to get his insight on how things have evolved since our last conversation.
This podcast channel is about you, successful international entrepreneurs, successful expats, successful investors. Sponsored by HTJ Tax. And we're live. Dan, good evening. Good to see you again. How are you?
Good. I'm doing all right. Great to see you again as well. It's been a while.
Fantastic. So we spoke last time, probably 3-4 months ago, or maybe a bit more. Time has flown. For those who may not have seen that first video or heard that first podcast, could you introduce yourself again, please?
Sure. My name's Dan Murphy. I'm based in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. From the U.S. initially. I've been a digital nomad, I guess you could say, basically since I got out of university. I run a marketing and consulting company here in Southeast Asia. I recently sold those, and I was getting into direct-to-consumer goods, and then I had to pivot during COVID to going back to consulting primarily on digital marketing and e-commerce, while doing some small D2C stuff on the side as well. But like most people, I think I had to adjust my plans a little bit.
Absolutely. Right. And when we spoke, how many months ago, you were at that point of pivoting where you're saying, okay, you had a plan, obviously it's not going to work, and so you're going to try something different. How has that worked out for you?
Oh, it's all right. First couple of months was a bit slow, but kind of used my own personal network to basically draw on some clients. So I'm kind of doing what I used to do, but I used to consult and do marketing campaigns for really big corporate clients, but now I'm doing it for primarily small businesses as well as niche businesses, which personally I like because you basically become you basically, when you work with big corporate clients, you're basically at their whim as to shut your mouth and do what they tell you to do. Whereas surprisingly, with small business owners, I think they are humble enough to basically say, hey, you know better than I do in this certain respect. Go ahead and do it. I trust you. You have to build that trust first initially, obviously. But it's been a lot more stress-free for me. So honestly, I'm pretty happy with it, for now.
Okay. So when we had that conversation, we both imagined how things would evolve. Has it worked out in the way in which you thought it would at that point? If not, what has been like the big differences you've seen?
Yeah, I mean, I think with certain exceptions, it's definitely moved in that direction. I think what we talked about was, businesses digitalizing, getting into e-commerce, and that's frankly the work I've been doing right now is taking traditional businesses that were brick and mortar and helping them get online, whether that, for the most part, it's e-commerce, but also just having a digital footprint, engaging. You basically go where people are, and right now people are online. It's kind of accelerated a trend that was already going that way, obviously. So yeah, I think COVID just kind of thrown some gas in the fire, so to speak. Fortunately for me, obviously it disrupted some of my plans initially, but luckily for me, I already had a background in digital marketing and e-commerce, so I was in a fortunate position in that respect where I could kind of jump in and hit the ground running and get some clients, keep my head above water for now. So whether or not that's something I want to continue to be in moving forward, I still want to be selling direct to consumer, selling my own products, finding my own manufacturers. But for now, just going to keep refining my skills and hopefully take that into my own individual enterprise down the road.
Okay. So here's a weird question for you. So if you knew that this was all going to happen, like if you just magically knew, how would you have positioned yourself differently? If you were.
I've thought about that, and I've actually started to do it as well. I think this is appropriate for all people across the retail sector would be finding suppliers in the markets that you want to be selling in, or distributors, or fulfillment centers. What I've encountered, and I've also, some of my clients have this problem as well, is that international shipping logistics is difficult at the moment. If you're shipping expensive, big bulk quantities, and you don't have to worry about the shipping costs in relation to the price of your products, it's not really a problem. It's going to take longer. But if you're selling lower ticket items, anything a couple $100s and below, there's not much of a chance of shipping it overseas. You still can, but it's going to take, if you're selling it direct to the consumer, it's going to take 40 or 50 days to get there, unless you want to pay DHL 60 or 70 bucks to ship it. And even then, it's a couple weeks. So what I've started to do personally, what I've advised to my clients is, if they already have an existing distribution network, if not, find one that's within whatever territory you're trying to sell in. So for me personally, I'm looking at selling products in the US through Alibaba suppliers, or through AliExpress rather. But they also have fulfillment centers and distribution facilities in the US for a lot less products, but they're already there, or I guess they ship them in bulk as well. That way, I mean, the domestic logistics network in the US, it was overwhelmed at first, but it's recovered now, I think. So you can basically still ship something to somebody within a couple of days without the exorbitant costs. And yeah, so you can kind of maintain that legitimacy with whoever you're trying to sell to. So that's something had I known that I, had a crystal ball, I would have gone that direction. It took me a while to kind of realize that, and I obviously had to find new products, new branding, new positioning, that sort of thing. But yeah, I think that's kind of a rule of thumb now across the world. If you want to say source something independently in Asia or Southeast Asia, ship it across the globe, you're probably going to wait until the world gets back to normal, unless you're buying it in massive bulk, and then say shipping it to the US and then selling it domestically. Different story. Yeah.
What about within Asia itself? So like sourcing stuff, let's say in China, and selling it into, I don't know, like South Korea or Singapore or Australia, New Zealand?
Yeah, it's still it's actually similar shipping times from China to the US as say China to even to Malaysia, where I live right now. Wow. It's just it's a matter of there's no air, there's no air freight really moving around. The big shippers like DHL and FedEx have their own fleet of planes, right? But obviously that's limited. There's no more commercial flights where they can throw cargo onto. So I think it's really a struggle. I think your best option might be buy in bulk, ship it to wherever your primary market is, have a cheap fulfillment partner, and then sell from there. If you have the cash to do that and you have the patience and time to do that, that's the move. For people like me who are kind of smaller entrepreneurs running kind of a 1 or 2 man show, if you don't have a couple $100,000 lying around to do that, that might not be a possibility. So then you have to think a little bit more outside the box.
Right, but that I would imagine that may be a temporary situation, in that once flights get going again, the capacity will return, and things, at least that side of it, can go back. So are you like impacted by the trade dispute at all, or no?
Surprisingly, no, because I mean, don't quote me on this, but that's more from a macroeconomic level, I guess. Things like if you're importing steel or textiles or something like that, I think that's really where it's getting hit. But if it's smaller e-commerce, they have this delivery system called ePacket, which is if you store something in China and ship it, it's a couple of bucks. It takes a long time. But consumer items still, as long as it's below that $900 tariff for the US, I think it's exempt. Still, yeah. But if you are some massive company that's sourcing raw materials from China, then I think you're gonna have some issues. Hopefully, it doesn't trickle down to the average consumer. But
right, and then
direction the election takes this year as well to see how that goes.
Okay. I'm just thinking that some people take the view that in terms of capacity, in terms of commercial air travel, it probably won't return to what it once was for a number of reasons. There's been obviously a push towards nationalism that predated the pandemic that's just been accelerated by it. And then that nationalism is not just about trade flow, but about human, people, movement of people across borders. And in a way, I remember like last year having lots of conversations with clients about passports because some people want to invest in other residencies, other citizenships. And there've been all these rankings from the economic migration agents based on how many jurisdictions or how many countries you can jump into without a visa. Now all the visa rules have been thrown out, and there's certain travel corridors or travel bubbles or travel bridges, and they also come with health checks. So to the extent that that continues, these bubbles would be the extent to which you'd be looking at lower capacity travel. So therefore, the spin-off impact that has on the flow of goods that would depend on that cargo space, it may be also constrained. And then airlines are taking the view, you know what, this is going to be for a while, and they're reducing capacity as well.
Yep.
They're sending home staff, not temporarily, not furloughs, but permanently, and they're grounding aircraft that are being parked in like lots of deserts all over the world.
Right.
So yeah, I'm just throwing that out there to say that this may take a while, and and in that sense, people still need to make money, and 50, 60-day delivery times just don't work. So what about increasing production capacity closer to the consumption market? So for example, in being somewhere in Mexico or closer to the US to satisfy the US market. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's a good point. I think it's easier. The thing is, kind of the not necessarily stereotype, but kind of just the general train of thought in terms of sourcing and manufacturing. At least in the last 10, 15 years, has been go to China. So they have a lot of things in place, whether that's online marketplaces, find suppliers, English-speaking customer service people to kind of guide them through it, and have these massive platforms with peer-reviewed reviews of products and suppliers. It was a lot more inclusive in how they set it up, where anybody can just get online in 2 minutes. You can find somebody. I don't know if that infrastructure is in place in Mexico. I'm not sure if a language barrier would be more challenging, because I'm not sure if they were that accessible. I think that maybe that's an advantage, or that's an opportunity for somebody, or for a large amount of people down there in Mexico, for example, to get goods across to the U.S. Not something I personally looked at. I was looking at existing infrastructure within the U.S., existing product and supplies. But yeah, I think that would make a lot of sense. And I think going back to what you were talking about previous, in terms of diminished air travel capacity in the future, not just stoked by necessarily the nationalism and kind of xenophobia, but also I think say things like business travel are going to be kind of seen as obsolete, because now we've kind of all got the processes in place where why pay thousands of dollars to ship something halfway around the world for a couple of weeks when you can just do what we're doing right now. So yeah, and I think maybe even, let's say we get some sort of limited opening of international travel, I think a lot of countries are going to be pretty picky about who they let in. I don't know if that's going to be a long-term effect or if that'll be more short-term, but I think a lot of countries are going to adjust their visa policies as opposed to just saying anybody come on in. I mean, I saw it here in Malaysia, and just the xenophobia that you see locally, whether it's in the media or physically on the streets with police harassing people and that sort of thing. I don't think that's going away anytime soon. So yeah, there's a lot of considerations, a lot of factors, moving parts that go into trying to maintain an international business. And that's why I've been kind of putting most of my focus and effort into the consulting, helping companies that have massive infrastructure and distribution networks in place, and then also small businesses that operate in more of a local capacity. But a lot of small businesses in the U.S. that I'm talking with right now, some in the hospitality sector that are struggling a lot, and then physical brick and mortar shops that need to get online and don't really know where to start. So that's my little niche I've carved out, and gonna keep plodding along at that as long as I have to.
Okay, that's fair enough. And some people describe the era, the age in which we now find ourselves as post-normal. To me, normal denotes predictability and stability, and that seems to be the antithesis of where we are. It's everything but stable, it's everything but predictable. And even, we've seen situations, everyone has, when there's been a travel bubble that opened up, and then without any notice has been closed down. So you could go somewhere, no, you can't. And that's not, you can't build a business, you can't build relationships, you can't build any long-term structures on a foundation that works that way. So at the beginning, you mentioned that you were using the relationships that you'd already made to get certain things done, and that reminded me of, like, we had a team Zoom call earlier today, and I was sharing with them that we had a client in Singapore who had a certain need for China, not a product but a service. And because we knew people in China who can perform a certain task calculation, we were able to get that done. But those are relationships that we made by meeting those people. Right. Now, I'm just thinking what we can do right now is sustain relationships. We can sustain existing relationships. Yep. But to a large extent, business is built on relationships. So how do we create new relationships when getting there, meeting someone, shaking their hand is suddenly next to impossible? How have you been doing it, and how do you see yourself doing it going forward?
Yeah, my I guess number one piece of advice for somebody that may have found themselves or still find themselves in the position I was a couple months ago, where you're in between jobs or in between businesses, and you're kind of lost and you know what to do, don't know what to do next. My biggest piece of advice would be to leverage the people that you know, the existing network. Don't be afraid to reach out to people, because the fact of the matter is, a lot of those people are probably going to be struggling or looking for new opportunities themselves, and they're going to be more willing to collaborate with you than they would necessarily, in the past when things are going great. And that's exactly how I kind of got things going again. Was just putting out feelers, letting people know what I can do, and then all of a sudden you get, all the clients I got now were entirely reference based. Weren't people that I knew personally that I'm actually doing the work for, but people that I know that bring them to me. They take a 10% kind of finder's fee, that sort of thing. It's a win-win for everybody. So in terms of building strong relationships with those new clients and those new people, the best way you can do it is what we're doing right now. At least you still get a look and feel and understanding of each other. And I always keep constant dialogue with all my potential partners and my current ones, just through WhatsApp or messaging or doing this right now on Zoom. That's the best you can do. And then you have to keep those social interactions going online. And then just use as many, you really dig into your memory bank. Even if you only have a couple of years of work experience, there's going to be dozens of people that you know well enough to at least reach out to, and then they're going to know dozens of people, and then you have an exponential amount of potential people that you can get to, and that's without even going into the whole other way of potentially bringing clients, which is it's a whole other thing. But you don't even necessarily have to do that. I think the human capital in terms of the people that you know is your most powerful tool right now. And that's what worked for me. I would recommend it strongly.
Yeah, that is a powerful idea. Using the relationships you already have, those first, like in LinkedIn, those first level or first degree connections, and let them introduce you or refer you if they think it's appropriate to people they know. So connecting, so that second level or that third level, it can move exponentially. So that is a powerful idea.
That's exactly what we've been doing, kind of it's almost like affiliate marketing in that sense,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
a much more personal kind of level of that. But yeah, that's more or less what my strategy has been, and it's worked. So
Okay. And earlier on, you kind of dropped that term that's becoming quite popular. Well, it to me, I guess in our ecosystem, it has been well known, but I think for people outside of our circles, the idea of being a digital nomad, it's
yeah.
something that's relatively new. But it's been around for a while. How do you see it evolving now that people can't just hop to Bali and hop from here to Chiang Mai or whatever? What do you see everyone doing?
Yeah, I mean, right now it's
Hmm.
for people that are already in it. It's to find a safe place and hunker down, some
Hmm.
place where they're not going to just pick you up and throw you out.
Hmm.
Um, a lot of people I know, say people that were in Bali, they've had to go home. People in Thailand, they've had to go home.
Hmm.
I've been fortunate in Malaysia because they just let you stay indefinitely. Even if your visa expires, it's like, hey, there's a moratorium on
Hmm.
penalizing that. You can just stick
Hmm.
around.
Yeah.
So that's been great for me. I mean, there's still, and like we had talked about briefly, maybe before we started recording, was
Hmm.
there are still some places, some great places where you can go. And for me as an American or with an American passport,
Hmm.
that's very limited, more limited than for a lot of countries. But
Hmm.
there's still places like Turkey, Croatia that I was looking at to go to,
Hmm.
where there are, even Maldives actually you can do now as well. I think as long as you have a COVID test, um, you don't really have to worry. I don't even know if you go to Turkey or Croatia if you need to have a COVID test. Um, but there's great, beautiful places that are affordable, cheap. You could live. I was looking at an apartment in Istanbul, right on the banks of the Bosphorus Strait, for $500 a month. I was like, oh,
Hmm.
it's way cheaper than the rent that I pay right now, and I could be
Hmm.
in Istanbul, right down on the waterfront, enjoying myself, doing what I do. I mean, I'm the way that I've set up my career. I'm not limited by location or by
Hmm.
time zone or anything like that.
Hmm.
Um, so there's still those opportunities for people. Let's say you're stuck domestically and you don't really have a feasible way to get out of your country, or you
Hmm.
say you had a certain destination in the back of your mind and that's where you really want to go, but you can't. I mean, you can still do it. You can still pop around, say the U.S. It's a big country. You can pop down anywhere wherever you're comfortable, still do your thing.
Hmm.
But I think it's funny because the actual digital nomad lifestyle is not going to be as possible like it once was uh, in the short term. But the necessity of those services that digital nomads provide are growing exponentially.
Hmm.
So you can still be a digital nomad in spirit, I guess, just not necessarily on some tropical beach somewhere. But
Okay.
whether that's out of your apartment or yeah, or
Hmm.
whatever you're doing. But yeah, those services. So whether it's just working remotely, digital consultancy, e-commerce,
Hmm.
those are obviously in massive demand.
Okay. Uh, Maldives. I've never tried that. I've tried Mauritius. My problem
So,
was Wi-Fi is too slow there. But
yeah.
anyway, if you were to propose or just throw out like five in your mind, the five best places to be if you have the option of flying there at this point, given all the restrictions and whatever, what would be your five recommendations based on what
so
you
so right now with the current restrictions, the five, Turkey, Croatia.
took you, Croatia?
Yep. I would say Maldives, but I was thinking about doing it myself if I had to.
Hmm.
But then you're just looking at how tiny the islands are, and you're like, what if I just get stuck on that island for 3 months or something? I mean, it's beautiful, but
Yeah.
it would get old. So maybe not Maldives. Um, Malaysia, it's possible for some people to come in
Hmm.
under certain guidelines.
Hmm.
So I'd tentatively put that on the list. I guess Portugal, right where you are right now. I've had people that uh, have worked there remotely. Actually, Peter and his girlfriend had done that.
Okay.
So I put Portugal on that list, and let me drop a fifth one. I think there's some Caribbean countries right now that are pretty
Right.
open. So maybe Bahamas or Saint Martin or something like that might be. So
Okay.
yeah, so let's say yeah, one Caribbean island of your choice. uh, Southeastern Europe, so Croatia, Turkey,
Mhm.
um, and then Southeast Asia where you can get it, although that's limited.
Mhm.
But so I guess to sum up, I would say Portugal, Turkey, Croatia. Let's just say Bahamas. and then Malaysia if you're special.
Okay, gotcha.
If I left Malaysia, I couldn't get back in, but like my British friends could. So.
Okay. So, but you mentioned that Malaysia, you can get in under certain circumstances.
Yeah, but I could not. But some of my friends could, like, depending where your passport is.
All right. Okay. They've identified certain countries that they're okay with. Okay.
Yeah, and then as long as you quarantine for 2 weeks, and if you have a valid reason to be there, so you could have a friend that runs a company in Malaysia, and they can file a claim. They can say, oh, I need this guy to come meet with me, and then they'll grant you a pass. So.
Yeah, that seems to be the case with, I understand you can do that in Indonesia, you can do that in the Philippines as well. So again, the non-essential travel, they've kind of stopped that. But if someone can craft a narrative where you are essential, then that's your in.
Yep.
Yeah. And seeing that you are, on the ground in Malaysia, what's your outlook? So like, what signals are the authorities giving for what happens next?
Well, as we speak right now, the health minister is giving a speech on the future of Malaysia.
Yeah.
It had been super open. I thought it was probably the best place to be in the entire world. There were low coronavirus cases. All the bars and restaurants were more or less functioning normally, with the exception of everybody wearing masks. It felt like completely normal, and it was great. And that was after a couple of months of full lockdown, and then gradually easing it up. Businesses could stay open later and later, and things got less hardcore. But in the last couple weeks, the cases have spiked, and after we get off this call, I'll find out whether I can go outside again. I think it might be shut down again. I really hope not. But it was intense at first because they were kind of going after the lower echelons of society, and so they were rounding up people, immigrant workers, deporting a lot of people. It was a bit militant, and there was police everywhere. But then the last last month and a half, 2 months, it eased up, and it just felt like business as usual. Everybody's going to their offices, everything's, it was perfectly fine. But unfortunately, we're lapsing back into, I think, a second lockdown, which, has been happening, especially in Western Europe now. So,
right.
It's not looking great, I don't think, but hopefully, I'm hoping for some positive news once we're done here, but we shall see.
Okay. Yeah, and just stepping back to what you're saying about digital nomads, the whole idea of hopping around from place to place, that's probably out. So when you somewhere, it needs to be a long-term commitment, relatively long-term commitment, like months or a year or something like that. And I know that Bermuda and Barbados have year-long options in the Caribbean. I think Thailand recently, like a week or two ago, they announced a long-term visit visa as well. I think you quarantine in Phuket for 2 or 3 weeks. Okay, and then you can move around. So I guess that's the longer term outlook. Well, good luck to you in Malaysia. But before we go, it'll be unfortunate if I let you go without asking you about your thoughts on the U.S. elections.
Just avoiding it. There was a debate 2 days ago.
Yeah, did you watch it?
Everybody's asking me now. Even just mentioning politics, or at least American politics, just makes my blood pressure steadily rise. So I try to just block it out. I'm just happy that I don't have to be in the U.S. When November rolls around. I don't know if I can take that. Maybe there's a reason why I ended up halfway around the world.
Yeah.
Get away from that kind of stuff.
I know what you mean. I mean, everywhere, and not just in the U.S., but the other places I pay attention, like the U.K., it is kind of upside down right now. And I
just want common sense to prevail, and unfortunately, that's a lot to ask, apparently.
Sure. All right, Dan, thank you very much for your time. Appreciate it.
Yeah, Derren. Great to talk to you.
All right.
Take it easy.
Please subscribe, like, share, and comment below. Our books and upcoming events are available at htj.tax. Email us at help@htj.tax to engage us, to advise on international tax or business matters.